A woman collapsed in front of my house, bleeding, and whispered, "Don't let them take my daughter." Then a car pulled up, claiming to be her family. I was washing my truck in the driveway when she stumbled around the corner. Blood soaked through her white blouse and spreading patterns that looked like grotesque flowers blooming across fabric. She was maybe 30, dark hair matted to her forehead with sweat and something darker. Her eyes found mine with desperate clarity, even as her legs gave out. She hit the pavement hard, hands scraping concrete as she tried to catch herself. I dropped the hose and ran. The water kept spraying, creating a widening puddle that mixed pink with her blood as I knelt beside her. Her lips were moving, forming words I couldn't hear over my own pulse hammering in my ears. I leaned closer. "Don't let them take my daughter," she whispered. Her hand grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Promise me. Don't let them take Sophie. They'll kill her. They'll kill us both." Then her eyes rolled back and her grip went slack. I fumbled for my phone, dialed 911 with shaking fingers. The operator's voice was calm, professional, asking questions I could barely process. What was the emergency? Was she breathing? Where was she injured? I looked down. The blood was coming from her abdomen, soaking through her clothes, pooling on my driveway. So much blood. Too much blood. I pressed my hands against the wound like I'd seen in movies, felt the warm wetness seeping between my fingers. She moaned, eyes fluttering. "Sophie," she breathed. "Please." That's when the black sedan pulled up. It stopped at the curb with the engine still running. Two men got out, both wearing khakis and button-down shirts. They looked normal, suburban, like they could be insurance salesmen or youth pastors. The taller one approached with his hands visible, palms out in a calming gesture. "Thank God we found her," he said, voice heavy with relief. "We've been searching everywhere. I'm Richard, this is my brother Paul. That's our sister Amanda. She has a medical condition, gets confused, wanders off. We've been frantic." The shorter one, Paul, was already pulling out his phone. "I'll call her doctor. He's been expecting this might happen. New medication. You know how it is. Side effects can be unpredictable." They sounded reasonable. Concerned family members dealing with a difficult situation. But Amanda's fingers dug into my arm. Her eyes opened, found mine, and the terror in them was absolutely real. She shook her head almost imperceptibly. The operator was still talking in my ear, asking if I'd found the source of bleeding, telling me ambulance was 6 minutes out. I kept pressure on the wound and looked up at Richard. "She's injured, bleeding badly. She needs an ambulance." Of course," Richard said, taking another step closer. "But we can take her to our family doctor. He knows her case, knows her history. It'll be faster than waiting for emergency. Services, they'll just take her to the county hospital. You know how those places are. She needs specialized care." Amanda's grip tightened. She was trying to say something, but her voice wouldn't work anymore. Just a rasp, a wheeze, and more blood bubbling at the corner of her mouth. Paul moved to my other side, reaching down like he was going to help lift her. "We've got her from here. Thank you so much for your help. You've been wonderful, but we can handle it from here. Family, you know." I didn't move. Something was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. The way Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. The way Paul's hands were too steady, too practiced. The way neither of them seemed particularly surprised or upset about the amount of blood. "The ambulance is almost here," I said. "We should wait. Make sure she's stable." "Really not necessary." Richard's voice had changed. Harder now, less pleasant. "This is a family matter. We appreciate your concern, but Amanda is our responsibility. We have legal guardianship, medical power of attorney, all the documentation. Now please, step aside. Where's Sophie?" The question came out before I'd thought it through. Both men went very still. "Who?" Richard asked, but his eyes had changed. Sharper now, calculating. "She asked about Sophie, said not to let them take her daughter." "Amanda doesn't have a daughter," Paul said quickly. "That's part of her delusion. The medication causes hallucinations. She's been talking about imaginary children for weeks. It's very sad, actually. Part of why we need to get her proper care." Amanda's hand moved, trembling, pointing toward the sedan, toward the back seat. I looked, saw a car seat, empty, but the straps were hanging loose, like someone had just been unbuckled, like someone had been sitting there moments ago. Richard saw me looking. His pleasant mask dropped completely. "Get away from her. Now." "No." I didn't recognize my own voice. "Not until the ambulance gets here. Not until the police." "The police?" Richard laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "You think the police will help? We have everything we need. Documentation, court orders. She's mentally incompetent, a danger to herself, and you're just some random civilian interfering in a legal guardianship situation. You'll be the one in trouble." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Richard's expression darkened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wallet, flipped it open to show an ID badge, official-looking, with a state seal and his photo. "I'm a licensed psychiatric transport agent. My brother is my certified assistant. We have the legal authority to take custody of Amanda Reeves for involuntary psychiatric commitment. She's been declared a danger to herself and others by Judge Whitmore of the Superior Court. So unless you want to be charged with interference with a lawful order, I suggest you step back." It sounded official, legitimate. The ID looked real, but Amanda was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face, still trying to form words through the blood. The ambulance rounded the corner, lights flashing. A police cruiser followed right behind it. Richard swore under his breath. Paul was already moving back toward the sedan. "We'll follow them to the hospital," Richard said loudly, for the benefit of the arriving paramedics. "Stay with her, Amanda. We'll get you the help you need." But his eyes promised something else entirely. The paramedics took over with efficient professionalism. They asked rapid-fire questions while cutting away Amanda's shirt to access the wound. "Stab wound," one of them said. single penetrating trauma to the upper abdomen, possible liver involvement. They got an IV started, pressure bandages applied, lifted her onto the gurney with practiced coordination. A police officer approached me, young guy with a neat beard and sharp eyes. His name tag read, Officer DeMarco. You're the homeowner? Can you tell me what happened? I explained everything. The woman collapsing, her warning about Sophie, the two men claiming to be family. I pointed at the black sedan, but it was already pulling away from the curb. DeMarco's hand went to his radio. Black sedan, partial plate, but it turned the corner and was gone before he could get the full number. They said they were psychiatric transport agents, had official ID, said they had court orders for her. DeMarco's expression tightened. Did they show you the actual orders? Signed documents? No, just the ID badge. That's not how it works. Transport agents don't just show up. There's a process. Paperwork. Usually law enforcement is involved if it's involuntary. And they definitely don't leave before making sure the patient is properly transferred to medical custody. The ambulance was pulling away, lights still flashing. DeMarco watched it go, then looked at me. Something's not right here. I'm going to follow up at the hospital, make sure she's protected. You said she mentioned a daughter? Sophie. She begged me not to let them take Sophie. Said they'd kill them both. And there was a car seat in their vehicle? Empty. But the straps were hanging like someone had just been unbuckled. DeMarco was already on his radio, calling it in. Possible child abduction. Black sedan, year and make unknown, headed north on Maple. Possible endangered child, name Sophie, age unknown. Be advised, subjects may be armed and dangerous. He turned back to me. I need a full statement. Everything you remember about those men. Description, clothing, any distinguishing features, anything they said. Every detail matters. We went inside my house and I told him everything while he recorded on his phone and took notes. Richard's calculated smile. Paul's two steady hands. The psychiatric transport badge that looked official but felt wrong. The way they'd known exactly what to say to sound legitimate. DeMarco listened without interrupting, his expression growing grimmer. You did the right thing, he said finally. Not letting them take her. If what she said is true, you might have saved her life. But what about Sophie? If they have her, we've got units looking. Description is going out to all neighboring departments. If there's a child in danger, we'll find her. But his tone suggested it wasn't that simple. He gave me his card, told me he'd be in touch, headed out to his cruiser. I watched him drive away, then stood in my driveway looking at the blood. My garden hose was still running, water pooling around the dark stains. I should clean it up, should go inside, take a shower, try to process what had just happened. Instead, I got in my truck and drove to the hospital. I told myself I just wanted to make sure Amanda was okay, that she'd survived. But really, I needed to know about Sophie. Needed to know if a little girl was out there somewhere with those two men. The ER waiting room was the usual chaos. Crying babies, someone holding a bloody towel to their head, an old man coughing into his fist. I approached the desk and asked about Amanda Reeves. The nurse looked at me with practiced skepticism. Are you family? No, but I'm the one who found her. I called 911. The police took my statement. I just want to know if she's okay. The nurse's expression softened slightly. She's in surgery. That's all I can tell you. Check back in a few hours. I sat down to wait. Pulled out my phone and searched for Amanda Reeves. Found several social media profiles, but none that matched her age or appearance. Tried searching for Sophie Reeves. Same result. Too common a name. Too many possibilities. An hour passed. Then 2. My phone rang. DeMarco. Mr. Garrett, we need you to come down to the station. Got some questions about your statement. Did you find Sophie? A pause. Just come down to the station, please. Detective wants to talk to you. The police station was a squat brick building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and never updated. DeMarco met me in the lobby and led me to an interview room. Small, windowless, with a table and 3 chairs. A woman was waiting there, late 40s, gray suit, tired eyes. She stood when I entered. Mr. Garrett, I'm Detective Lisa Kowalski. Thank you for coming in. Her handshake was firm, professional. We sat. She opened a folder and pulled out photos. Crime scene shots of my driveway, close-ups of the blood patterns, then a photo of Amanda Reeves from what looked like a driver's license. This is the woman who collapsed in front of your house? I nodded. Amanda Reeves, age 32, resident of Portland, Oregon. Reported missing 6 days ago by her employer when she didn't show up for work. Her apartment was found abandoned. Signs of a struggle. Blood evidence consistent with the stab wound she sustained. 6 days. She'd been running for 6 days with a stab wound. What about Sophie? Kowalski's expression didn't change. There is no Sophie Reeves on record. No birth certificate. No social security number. No medical records. Amanda Reeves has no children according to any official documentation. I stared at her. That's impossible. She was terrified for her daughter. She begged me. I believe she said those things. I believe she was genuinely terrified. But Mr. Garrett, Amanda Reeves has an extensive psychiatric history. Paranoid schizophrenia, diagnosed at age 23, multiple hospitalizations, medication non-compliance, history of delusional episodes involving imaginary children. The words hit like a physical blow. The men, the ones claiming to be family, they said the same thing, that Sophie was a delusion. Because it's true. Amanda's been in and out of treatment for years. This isn't the first time she's run from her caretakers. Last time was 3 years ago. She disappeared for 2 weeks, finally found living in a tent in Forest Park, talking about protecting her baby from unnamed threats. But the stab wound. Someone tried to kill her. That's what we're investigating. Portland PD has an open case. They believe she may have been the victim of an assault before she went missing. Possibly tried to seek help, got disoriented. The head injury we found suggests she may have fallen or been struck. which would explain the confusion and paranoid behavior. It all sounded logical, reasonable. A mentally ill woman experiencing a psychotic break. But I kept seeing her eyes, the clarity in them when she'd grabbed my wrist, the very specific fear. What about Richard and Paul, the psychiatric transport agents? We're looking into that. There are legitimate services that transport psychiatric patients, but usually it's coordinated with law enforcement. The fact that they left the scene is concerning. However, she paused, choosing her words carefully. It's possible they were legitimate and got spooked when police arrived. Sometimes private transport services operate in gray areas legally. We're checking licensing databases. They had a car seat in the back of the sedan. Empty, but the straps were undone. Kowalski nodded. Could be from a previous job. These transport services handle all kinds of cases, including families with children, or it could have been their personal vehicle. We don't know yet. Everything she said made sense, but nothing felt right. Can I talk to her? To Amanda? When she's out of surgery? That's not possible. Even if she survives, and it's touch and go right now, she'll be under psychiatric hold. Her legal guardian has already been contacted. Once she's medically stable, she'll be transferred to a secure psychiatric facility. Who's her legal guardian? Kowalski checked her notes. Her brother, Richard Reeves. He's been her primary caretaker since their parents died 5 years ago. He's the one who reported her missing to Portland PD. He's been cooperating fully with the investigation. My blood went cold. Richard, the same man who showed up at my house. Yes. He's on his way here now to provide a formal statement and arrange for Amanda's transfer once she's stable. He's very concerned about his sister's well-being. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. You can't let him take her. He's the one she's running from. He's the threat. Mr. Garrett, I understand you're upset. You witnessed a traumatic event. But you need to look at this objectively. Richard Reeves has legal authority, court-appointed guardianship, medical power of attorney. He's been caring for his sister for years. There's no evidence he's done anything wrong. She's terrified of him. She's terrified of everyone. That's the nature of paranoid schizophrenia. In her mind, the people trying to help her are threats. The medication that keeps her stable is poison. The facilities that provide care are prisons. It's a tragic situation, but it doesn't mean her guardian is the villain. I couldn't argue with her logic, but every instinct was screaming that something was wrong. What if you're wrong? What if there really is a Sophie and she's in danger? Kowalski's expression softened. Then we'll find evidence of her existence. Birth records, hospital records, school enrollment, daycare, pediatrician visits, photographs, something. In today's world, children leave digital footprints everywhere. If Sophie Reeves exists, we'll find proof. And if you don't find proof because someone hit her, kept her off the grid deliberately, then we're talking about something much darker. Child trafficking, kidnapping. And if that's the case, we need solid evidence, not the words of a woman experiencing a psychiatric crisis. That's why we're investigating thoroughly, checking everything. But right now, all the evidence points to Amanda having a psychotic episode. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. She was right. I didn't want to hear it, because it meant I might have interfered with a legitimate medical transport, might have made Amanda's situation worse, might have been the villain in this story without realizing it. DeMarco drove me back to get my truck at the hospital. We didn't talk much. When we arrived, he finally spoke. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Better to err on the side of caution when someone's begging for help. But Kowalski's good at her job. If there's something hinky going on, she'll find it. I nodded and got out. Went inside to check on Amanda one more time. The same nurse was at the desk. She made it through surgery, she told me. Critical but stable. Liver damage, blood loss. She'll be in ICU for at least 48 hours. Can I see her? Family only. Are you family? I almost lied. Almost said yes, but I just shook my head and left. At home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pulled up news articles about mental illness, about schizophrenia and delusional episodes. Found stories that matched Amanda's perfectly. People convinced they had children who didn't exist. Patients running from imaginary threats. Families struggling to get their loved ones help. It all fit. But so did another narrative. Women fleeing abuse who weren't believed because their abusers were charming and respectable. Children disappeared into unofficial adoptions or worse. Systems that failed the vulnerable because monsters learned to speak the language of authority. I searched for Richard Reeves. Found a LinkedIn profile. Psychiatric social worker. Licensed in Oregon and Washington. Professional photo showing a kind face. Trustworthy. Glowing recommendations from colleagues. Volunteer work with mental health nonprofits. He looked like exactly the kind of person who would care for a troubled sister. Or exactly the kind of person who knew how to hide in plain sight. I tried Amanda Reeves again. Found an old blog, last updated 3 years ago, before the incident Kowalski mentioned. The posts were about daily life, work at a bookstore, nothing remarkable. Then, a sudden shift. Posts about feeling watched, people following her, someone coming into her apartment while she slept, classic paranoia symptoms, or classic stalking behavior. The blog ended abruptly. No final post. Just stopped. I dug deeper. Found an old Facebook account, also inactive for 3 years. But scrolling through the photos, I found one that made me stop. Amanda at a birthday party, smiling. And on her lap, a little girl, maybe 2 years old. Blonde curls, blue dress. The caption read, Sophie's second birthday. Best day ever. The post was dated 4 years ago. I screenshot it immediately. Started scrolling through older posts looking for more. Found them. Dozens of photos. Amanda pregnant. Amanda with a newborn. Amanda with a toddler learning to walk. Sophie's first Halloween. Sophie's first Christmas. Sophie at the park. Sophie everywhere. The posts stopped 3 years ago, right when Amanda's blog had turned paranoid, right when she'd supposedly started having her first delusional episode. right when all official records of Sophie disappeared. I called Kowalski, got her voicemail, left a message about the Facebook photos, sent screenshots to her email. Called again. No answer. Tried DeMarco. Same result. It was past midnight. They were off duty, but this couldn't wait. I drove back to the hospital. The night shift nurse was different, younger, less skeptical. I need to see Amanda Reeves. I have information about her case. It's urgent. Visiting hours are over. ICU is restricted anyway. I have evidence about her daughter, Sophie. The police need to see it. The nurse hesitated. The police were already here. Her brother's with her now, actually, making arrangements for her transfer. My heart stopped. Her brother? Richard? I think that's his name, yeah. Nice guy. Really broken up about his sister's condition. Said he's been searching for her for days. You can't let him take her. Please. You need to call the police. Tell them, sir, I can't just call the police because you have a bad feeling. He has all the legal documentation, medical power of attorney, guardian papers. Everything's in order. Those papers are fake. He's the one who stabbed her. He's the reason she ran. Please, you have to listen. Security arrived before I could finish. 2 large men in uniform who firmly but politely escorted me out of the building. Told me if I came back without authorization, I'd be arrested for trespassing. I sat in my truck in the parking lot, hands shaking. Called 911. The operator was patient but firm. Without evidence of a crime in progress, they couldn't intervene. Amanda's guardian had legal authority. If I had information relevant to an investigation, I should contact Detective Kowalski in the morning. I called Kowalski again. Left another voicemail, more urgent this time. Told her about Richard being at the hospital right now. About the Facebook photos. About my certainty that something was desperately wrong. Then I waited. Watched the hospital entrance. At 2 a.m., Richard emerged. He wasn't alone. Paul was with him, and a third man I didn't recognize. They were laughing about something casual, relaxed, like they'd just finished a pleasant evening. They got into the black sedan and drove away. I followed them, kept my distance, lights off when I could, staying far enough back that they wouldn't notice. They headed out of town, toward the highway, north, toward Portland. I should have called the police, should have turned around and gone home. But if I lost them now, Amanda was dead, and Sophie was gone forever. The highway was mostly empty at this hour. Just the occasional semi-truck and late-night travelers. Richard's sedan maintained a steady speed, no indication he knew I was behind them. After an hour, they took an exit toward a small town I'd never heard of. Rural area, lots of farmland and forest. The sedan turned onto a county road, then onto a smaller road, finally onto what looked like a private driveway. A gate blocked the way, but it opened automatically as they approached. I drove past, killed my lights, parked on the shoulder a quarter mile up, got out, and walked back through the darkness. The property was extensive. The driveway wound through trees for at least 100 yards before opening into a clearing. A large house sat there, 2 stories, modern design, lights on in several windows. The sedan was parked in front. I circled around, staying in the tree line. Tried to see inside the windows, but curtains blocked most of the view. Then I heard it. A child crying. Faint, coming from somewhere behind the house. I moved closer. There was a smaller building behind the main house. Looked like a guest cottage or maybe a converted garage. The crying was coming from there. I approached carefully. The building had a single door with a heavy deadbolt. No windows that I could see. Just solid walls and a locked door. And inside, a little girl was crying for her mommy. I tried the door. Locked, obviously. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but there was no signal. Too far from town, too deep in the valley. I could go back to my truck, drive until I found service. But how long would that take? What if they moved Sophie while I was gone? What if they realized someone had followed them? The main house's back door opened. I ducked behind a tree. Richard and Paul came out, talking in low voices. They walked toward the cottage. Richard pulled out a key. She's been crying for hours, Paul said. The sedatives aren't working like they used to. We'll increase the dose, just until we finalize the arrangements. Another week at most. And if the sister survives. She won't. I made sure of it. Even if the surgery was successful, I've already talked to the night shift supervisor. Amanda's medication will be adjusted. Complications happen. Tragic but not unexpected given her psychiatric history. They opened the cottage door and went inside. The crying stopped abruptly. I heard Richard's voice, muffled but angry. Shut up. Your mother's dead. You're ours now. The sooner you accept that, the better. I ran. Back to my truck, heart pounding, lungs burning. Drove until I found cell service. Called 911. The operator answered on the second ring. 911, what's your emergency? Child abduction. I found her. Sophie Reeves. She's being held at a property. I gave the address. Everything I'd seen. Everything I'd heard. The operator kept me on the line, asking questions, confirming details. Police were being dispatched. Multiple units. Detective Kowalski was being notified. I drove back toward the property. Met the first police car about 5 miles out. DeMarco was driving. Kowalski was in the passenger seat. They pulled over and I stopped beside them. You better be right about this, Kowalski said through the window. Because if you're wrong, if you've brought us out here on a paranoid hunch. I heard her. Sophie. She's in a cottage behind the main house. Richard and Paul were talking about killing Amanda, about finalizing arrangements for Sophie. They called her theirs now. More police cars arrived. Kowalski coordinated quickly, professionally. Perimeter established. Backup requested. Approach plan developed. They wouldn't let me go with them. Told me to wait at the roadblock they were setting up. I watched from a distance as they moved in. Lights and sirens would have given away the approach, so they went dark and quiet. 10 minutes felt like hours. Then suddenly lights blazed inside the main house. Shouting. More police vehicles screaming up the road. An ambulance. I couldn't see details from where I stood, but I could see movement. People being led out in handcuffs. And then, finally, an officer carrying a small figure wrapped in a blanket. A little girl with blonde curls. Sophie. They brought her to the ambulance. Paramedics checked her over while she cried and asked for her mommy. I wanted to tell her that her mommy was alive, that she'd fought so hard to protect her, that she'd been right all along. But they wouldn't let me near her. An hour later, Kowalski found me, still standing at the roadblock. Her expression was different now. We found 6 children in that cottage, ages 3 to 7, all reported missing from various states over the past 2 years. Sophie was one of them. I couldn't speak, just stared at her. Richard Reeves ran an illegal adoption ring, used his credentials as a psychiatric social worker to identify vulnerable women. Single mothers, women with mental health issues, women without strong family support. He'd target them, isolate them, eventually take their children. If they fought back, he'd have them committed or worse. In Amanda's case, he used his guardianship to have her declared mentally incompetent, erased Sophie from official records. When Amanda tried to expose him, he stabbed her and made it look like she'd had a psychotic break. The other man, Paul, his partner in everything. They had buyers lined up, wealthy couples who wanted children but couldn't adopt through legal channels. Some wanted to avoid background checks. Some wanted kids young enough not to remember their real families. Richard and Paul provided both the children and the documentation to make them disappear legally. And the third man I saw? Their lawyer, the one who filed all the guardianship papers, the commitment orders, the one who made sure everything looked legitimate. I felt sick. How long has this been going on? At least 5 years that we know of. Probably longer. We're still piecing it together. But without you, she paused. Without you following your instincts, ignoring every logical reason to believe Amanda was just mentally ill, those kids would still be there. Some were already sold. We might never have found them. What about Amanda? She's still in critical condition, but the hospital's been notified about the situation. She's under protective custody now. Real protective custody. When she wakes up, she'll know we found Sophie, that her daughter's safe. Will Sophie remember her? She's so young. That's for the therapists to figure out. But we found photos in the house. Dozens of them that Richard had kept, probably for blackmail or proof of acquisition. Sophie holding a sign that said, "Happy birthday, Mommy." Sophie in a Halloween costume that matches photos on Amanda's Facebook from years ago. We have proof of their relationship. We have proof that Sophie is hers. The relief was overwhelming. I've been right. Not paranoid. Not interfering. Right. What happens now? Now we arrest everyone involved. Search for more victims. Start the long process of reuniting children with families. And you, Kowalski looked at me with something like respect. You go home. Give a formal statement tomorrow. Try to process what you've witnessed. And maybe reconsider your career choices, because you've got good instincts for this kind of work. I'm a carpenter. Then you're a carpenter who saved 7 lives today. Not bad for a random Saturday. They let me go home at dawn. The blood on my driveway had dried to dark brown stains. I got out the hose and scrubbed until they were gone, but I knew I'd always see them. Always remember Amanda's face, her desperate plea. Don't let them take my daughter. I'd almost walked away. Almost believed the logical explanation. Almost let them win. The news broke that afternoon. National coverage. Child trafficking ring exposed. Multiple arrests. Children recovered. Amanda's photo was everywhere, described as a hero mother who'd fought impossible odds to save her daughter. Richard's professional photo was shown too, but now it looked different. The kind smile looked predatory. The trustworthy face looked calculated. Everything that had made him seem safe was revealed as camouflage. I gave my statement to police. Spent hours going through everything I'd seen, heard, done. They told me I might be called to testify when the case went to trial. I said I'd be there. 3 days later, I visited Amanda in the hospital. She was awake now, still weak, but alive. Sophie was with her, sitting on the bed, playing with a stuffed animal someone had given her. When Amanda saw me, she started crying. You kept your promise. You didn't let them take her. I almost did. I almost believed I was wrong. But you didn't. You listened when no one else would. You believed me when everyone said I was crazy. She reached for my hand, squeezed it. They made me think I was crazy. For 3 years. They had me committed, medicated, evaluated. Every time I told someone about Sophie, they said she was a delusion. Every time I tried to prove she existed, the evidence would disappear. Richard erased her. Birth certificate, medical records, everything. Said I'd imagined the whole pregnancy. And eventually, her voice broke. Eventually, I started to believe him. Started thinking maybe I was sick. Maybe Sophie wasn't real. Then I'd see her in that cottage and know I wasn't crazy. But by then, no one would listen. How did you escape? Richard got sloppy. Thought I was broken enough not to fight anymore. Left me alone in the house while he went to finalize a sale. I found keys to the cottage in his office. Got Sophie out. We ran. Made it almost 50 miles before they caught up to us. Richard was so angry. She touched her abdomen gently, where the knife had gone in. He stabbed me on the side of the highway. Said if he couldn't have Sophie, no one would. That I'd die knowing she'd disappear forever. Somehow I got away again. Walked for hours. Finally made it to your neighborhood. Saw you outside and thought maybe someone would finally listen. I'm sorry I doubted you. Even for a moment. You didn't doubt me when it mattered. That's what counts. Sophie looked up at me with solemn blue eyes. Are you the man who found Mommy? Yes. Thank you for saving her. The bad men said she was dead. But she's not dead. She's right here. She hugged Amanda fiercely. Amanda held her daughter and cried. The trial took 8 months. I testified about everything I'd witnessed. So did Amanda. So did the other mothers whose children had been taken. Some of them hadn't even known their kids were alive. Had been told they'd died or been placed in foster care or simply disappeared into the system. Richard showed no remorse. Sat in court looking dignified and wronged. His lawyer argued psychiatric crisis, misunderstanding, overreach by law enforcement. But the evidence was overwhelming. Testimonies, documents, financial records showing payments from desperate couples. The 6 children found in that cottage. Richard got life without parole. So did Paul. The lawyer got 30 years. Others connected to the ring were still being tracked down. The network was larger than anyone had initially thought. Amanda and Sophie moved to a new state. Fresh start. Therapy for both of them. Amanda sent me updates sometimes. Photos of Sophie starting kindergarten, Sophie's first soccer game, Sophie smiling, healthy, free. A year after everything happened, they came to visit. Sophie ran up and hugged me like I was family. Maybe I was. Maybe that's what you become when you refuse to walk away from someone begging for help. She asks about you, Amanda said. Calls you the man who listened. Her therapist says that's important, that she knows someone heard her mother's cry for help and acted. It makes her feel safer in the world. We had coffee while Sophie played in my backyard. Talked about healing and trauma and the long road ahead. About the other children who were found. Some reunited with families. Some placed in foster care. All of them scarred but surviving. About the mothers who'd been labeled crazy, drugged, committed, erased. About the system that had failed them all. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd walked away? Amanda asked. Every day. Me too. And every day I'm grateful you didn't. She left an hour later, Sophie waving from the car window. I watched them drive away and thought about random Saturday afternoons and split-second choices and the difference between looking away and paying attention. The blood was long gone from my driveway, but I still saw it sometimes. Still remembered the feel of it warm and wet on my hands. Still heard Amanda's whispered plea. Still saw the terror in her eyes. And every time, I thought about how close I'd come to believing the lie, to trusting the official story, to walking away from someone desperate and bleeding and begging for help, because that's what monsters count on, that we'll trust the badges and the credentials and the paperwork, that we'll believe the calm explanations and the reasonable voices, that when someone screams the truth, we'll call them crazy instead of listening. But sometimes you have to trust your gut over your brain. Trust the fear in someone's eyes over the smile on someone's face. Trust the desperate plea of a bleeding mother over the official documents of a well-dressed man. Sometimes you have to choose to believe the impossible story, because sometimes the impossible story is the only one that's true. And sometimes if you're very lucky, that choice saves a life. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.